Not young, but indeed very effective.
This is a fairly accurate and quite powerful missile, operating on an air-to-ground system, an unguided missile.
And almost the best in their class. But most importantly, there are tens of thousands of them, and they are completely unnecessary for their manufacturing country, Canada. We are talking about CRV-7 air-to-ground missiles with a caliber of 70 millimeters. They have long proven their effectiveness. Now they are awaited in Ukraine. Why these missiles are so needed by official Kyiv and whether their age will hinder their performance, we'll discuss this and more in just a moment. The CRV-7 is the brainchild of the Canadian company Bristol Aerospace. It was commissioned in the early part of the 1970s as a significantly improved and enhanced version of the standard American unguided aviation rocket.
This is a Canadian development from the mid-70s, created by a Canadian company based on the American Hydra 70 rocket. Hydra 70, as it would be pronounced in the English transcription.
At that time, the CRV-7 was the most powerful projectile in its class. Its engine, which went into production in 1973, had a runtime of only 2.2 seconds, which did not prevent the rocket from developing a total impulse of more than 10 kilonewtons per second, with a relatively small weight of about 6.6 kilograms. Its warhead weighs from 4.5 kilograms and more. It's worth noting that these are impressive characteristics, not only for the mid-70s, but even today.
One of the most powerful rockets in its class. That is, various warheads were developed for it. In an inert state without a warhead, it is capable of penetrating Centurion tanks, which it was tested against.
In addition, the Canadian projectile's body has an exceptionally strong and durable structure. It is made from an innovative mixture of fiberglass and epoxy resin, allowing it to penetrate up to 1 meter of concrete. Moreover, the projectile is highly accurate.
It is quite precise. It has fins that unfold, enabling it to hit targets at a significant distance and
a considerable distance for an unguided aerial rocket is typically slightly more than 5 kilometers. At this range, it will be effective, as it allows launching from a distance outside the range of most short-range air defense systems, approximately. The projectile is intended for strikes on ground targets. It is extremely powerful, sufficiently powerful enough to penetrate even standard aircraft hangars. In Canada, several significant upgrades were made to the warhead, one of which is notably capable of hitting tanks with tungsten steel darts, while another is designed to target personnel and lightly armored vehicles. An advantage of the projectile is that it can be launched both from the air and from ground installations. For this purpose, the Canadians have a special combat module called Nanook. Incidentally, due to the full-scale decommissioning of the CRV-7, it also remains out of use and will most likely be scrapped. But if the Canadian authorities decide not to transfer these installations to us, the specially designed ground-to-ground version of the CRV-7 missile, marked PG, can be launched from any suitable diameter launchers mounted on off-road vehicles. Incidentally, Ukraine already has experience in creating such mobile installations.
there are 3 varieties. There is an anti-tank one, an anti-bunker one, and some kind of anti-personnel variant. Yes, warheads filled with ball bearings.
If we are talking about air, the Canadian can be installed on both airplanes, for example, on the F-16 and on helicopters. On the latter, the shells will be more effective. The CRV-7 can be integrated on the Mi-24 and the Mi-8. However, in our case, there will be no need to integrate anything. Everything is already done. The fact is, Ukraine has been using Hydra 70 rockets for almost a year, and as we remember, this is practically the Canadian sister.
These Hydra 70 rockets are essentially in service with the Ukrainian army because they were previously supplied as part of American military aid. Therefore, obviously, there should be no issues with the platforms, the aerial platforms for using these CRV rockets.
As for the age, experts say that for Ukraine, this is not an obstacle. Firstly, old shells have long been used on the Ukrainian front, and secondly, the enemy's weaponry is even older.
Because in this case, we are not fighting an army that is super modern. And for this war against an army like the Russian one, these rockets will be quite suitable.
A huge advantage, as we have already mentioned, is that there are tens of thousands of them in Canada, to be more precise, more than 80,000 shells. However, a few years ago, the government decided to dispose of the CRV-7. There were reasons for this. Ottawa will be forced to spend millions on the disposal. And then the Canadian opposition found a solution that suits both them and us to transfer the unguided aerial rockets to Ukraine, which will definitely find a use for them on the front.
Instead of forcing Canadians to pay millions of dollars for the decommissioning of this weapon, it should be transferred to Ukraine, which can use it to defend its sovereignty.
This decision was also supported by the head of Ukrainian intelligence, Kyrylo Budanov. He believes that this weaponry will be useful for Ukraine's defense and Canadians will be able to save money.
In light of the fact that Ukraine needs weapons since, as we know, there is a political pre-election struggle in the USA, which is significantly delaying the transfer of American military aid to us. Well, they remembered that these rockets exist.
On the downside, the CRV-7 rockets have been lying in warehouses for decades. This carries its own risks. Plus, not all the shells are in good condition. The media reports that currently only 8,000 shells are in suitable condition and have warheads. Others have already been disposed of or dismantled.
I think no one will tell us the true number of rockets that will be transferred. Their number might be and should be understated, but that's the way the game is played.
But even if the number isn't that significantly large, the dismantled shells can also be put to use in various ways. For instance, they plan to use them as spare parts for the Ukrainian drone program. And this weaponry, as we know, is the most effective on the Ukrainian front. Therefore, it can definitely be said that the Ukrainians will find how and where to use the overseas missiles. Next, it's up to the Canadian Parliament, and we hope that soon we will hear good news from them. And perhaps the CRV-7 won't be the only gift from our friends in Ottawa. Well, we will show and tell you about this, as well as other new and time-tested weapons that help drive out Russian occupiers from Ukrainian territory. So, give this video a like, write about which weapons you would like to hear about in new episodes, and be sure to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss new episodes of Arsenal.